Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome. We welcome you today to the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. I am so honored and excited to be here. Before we get started, we have Exion Baptiste, who is going to come and bless us. This wonderful young lady. Let's just give her a round of applause so that we can get started this morning.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of a gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of a bright star is cast.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And again, if you're just coming in, good morning and welcome. We welcome you again to the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. And before we get started, I want to just remind you of how we got here, how this started. It was in 2008 with the congressional unveiling ceremony of Sojourner's bust in the Capitol Visitor Center that this all began. And shortly thereafter, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation and the CBC women members convene an event like this during the annual legislative conference to celebrate Sojourner and those working to continue her legacy. And so I want to just honor right now, under the leadership of Congresswoman Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick, the former chair of the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project, and all of the women members of Congress. Would you please stand just so that we may acknowledge you and just appreciate what you have done. We have in the House, most of our congresswomen are with us today. Congresswoman Clark, who I'll introduce shortly, Congresswoman Edwards, Congresswoman Fudge, Congresswoman Kelly, and Congresswoman Lee. And so I will move this program along just because we're managing for time and schedules. And it was 3-4 years ago that they began, and the work that they did in this way in terms of convening a forum, just to let you know, it was focused primarily on bringing together women across generations to address issues such as jobs, healthcare, and the advancement of women in business and government sectors through a series of programs like this, and then there's one during Women's History Month. Programs have been conducted and held thrilled to honor the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project, and those programs continue to build a dynamic nationwide and intergenerational network of African American and multicultural women to harness the power that we have around issues important to our lives. The project today is now led, it's chaired by Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, who I will introduce to you in just a second. However, I want to acknowledge right now the sponsors in the room. Would you please stand? It would not be, if it were not for them, we would not be here. And so it's always so great to see all of the sponsors here. Prudential, Mars, yes, and Ford, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And so today, this year's forum, the 43rd Annual Legislative Conference, this session will focus on one topic, and that is voting rights. And so during the panel, we have four amazing voices and prominent figures that are going to share with us not just the current issue, but what we need to do, what it means for us, for our children and generations to come. And so I am so honored and pleased, but I'm going to now bring up, I see her in her seat. Actually, she was after my shoes, and I asked, and listen, with all due respect, I said, do you want them now, or should I take them off at the end of the session? And so Congresswoman Robin Kelly, please come. Just give her a round of applause, please.
My staff is not surprised I want your shoes, trust me. Good morning, everyone. This is my inaugural event, and I am honored to be here. And everyone should have the Litany of Truth so that you can follow along with me. So to make me feel warm and that you're listening, I need resounding voices when it gets to the audience portion. Now unto him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we may ever ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us, we recognize your strength, and we magnify your glory. For your word assures us that there were two or three are gathered. Where there are two or three gathered in my name, I am there among them. And today we gather in your name to remember the journeys of our sister Sojourner, whose unwavering faith in your majesty and a commitment to ensuring a better world for each of us started a revolution. Oh God, help us to understand that there's a Sojourner Truth in each of us. Audience. I am Sojourner Truth. Continue to shower us with your wisdom as we sow seeds of sisterly love, mentorship, and empowerment. May our wisdom grow to understanding. We know that the challenges that await us on this road to prosperity are near and great, but your wisdom teaches us that if we harness the power of every sister in this room and beyond, no weapon formed against us will survive the will of a Sojourner woman. For Sister Sojourner, the road to liberation was a tumultuous one. Those roads were filled with the roadblocks of oppression. They were plagued with the potholes of injustice and captivity. And the roads were patrolled by men who were committed to preserving life, of a struggle for every woman who sought a greater life than they were given. Today, we honor Sister Sojourner for breaking down these barriers, for her vigilance in freeing herself and her daughter from captivity captures the very essence of why we, as descendants of her legacy, can join hands in our nation's capital today. As we continue to live out her vision for our womanhood, Lord, help us to understand that our work means nothing if it doesn't improve the lives of those who come after us. Help us to teach our daughters, our granddaughters, that they don't have to accept social standards that suppress a woman's right to be treated equally. When the world tells them that they can't, guide us in teaching them to respond with, we can, because Sister Sojourner lives within each of us, and by that power, there is nothing that we can't do. Ain't I a woman? This is how we'll respond to the people who doubt. For as long as we hold true to your word, we are able to move mountains with these words that we shout. Ain't I a woman? This is what we'll say when our legs grow tired. May it remind us, Sister Sojourner, whose journey of triumph we know and admire. Ain't I a woman? This is what we'll say when we're on the brink of defeat. For your spirit and generations of strength flows within us with every heartbeat, everybody. Today we are victorious. We join hands to shape a world where all people are treated equally. By the power and strength vested in us, we commit to providing support and uplift to every sister from every corner of the earth. We will ensure our voices are heard and acknowledged in all places of power and influence. Lastly, we will lead with a sense of community and commitment to the greater good of all sisters. I am Sojourner Truth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And now I want to bring to the podium the woman who chairs the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. And she not only chairs, she's such a champion for this initiative and so much. And so please bear with me while I give her the proper introduction. She is U.S. Representative Yvette D. Clarke. She is a Brooklyn native whose roots are firmly planted in her Jamaican heritage. I can attest to that. I met her mother. And she is a doll. She is a product of New York City public school system. Representative Clarke graduated from Oberlin College and was a recipient of the prestigious Sloan Fellowship in Public Policy and Policy Analysis. Representative Clarke was first elected to Congress in November 2006, and she represents the New Ninth. Say New Ninth. New Ninth District. Sidebar, I tried to call on the Congresswoman, but I went to her website and it said, if you're not in the New Ninth, we love you and everything, but we need you to honor where you are and write you're a congressperson. And so I take that to mean people know how genuine she is about the work that she does and how passionate she is about helping people, and she gets an influx of that. So I did really try that this morning. But let me just continue to say this. Prior to being elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, Representative Clarke served on the New York City Council representing the 40th District of Brooklyn. She succeeded her pioneering mother, former City Council member Una Clarke, making them the first mother-daughter succession in the history of the council. Say amen, somebody. I'm sorry, I had to. Currently in the 113th Congress, Representative Clarke sits on the committees of Homeland Security, Ethics, and Small Business. In the 111th and 12th Congress, Representative Clarke has served on several committees, including Education and Labor and Homeland Security and Small Business. She is an unwavering champion for her native Brooklyn. She has worked with nonprofit organizations, local community groups, and appropriators to secure millions of dollars in essential federal support for the district. As a testament to what Representative Clarke has accomplished in her first term, she received an A rating from the Drum Major Institute and the middleclass.org. And so with that, would you all please welcome with a warm round of applause, Representative, the Honorable Congresswoman Yvette Clarke Lee.
Yes, you're welcome. To my very distinguished colleagues here present, to our leader, Nancy Pelosi, who has joined us, to Ms. Shawnice Washington, President and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, to our distinguished sponsors here present, to all of the sisters and enlightened men in the room, a pleasant good morning to each and every one. It's certainly my honor and my privilege to present to you another Sojourner Truth Legacy Project breakfast. I have the distinguished pleasure to introduce to each and every one of you a woman who has gone about her work in the spirit of Sojourner Truth. She is someone who took the mantle of leadership in the year that I was elected to Congress to become the first ever female Speaker of the House of Representatives. Yes, that it deserves a round of applause. And I have a feeling that any day now, that gavel will be returned to her hands. And so we want, without delay, to bring to you our leader in the House of Representatives, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you, Yvette, darling. Thank you very much, Congresswoman Clark, for your invitation to be here, your kind introduction, for your tremendous leadership in the Congress. Congresswoman Clark is indeed Sojourner Truth. She's a dreamer with a plan. And so are many of our other women members who are here. I see Donna Edwards. I'm sure they've all been acknowledged. Robin Kelly, who are here, and of course the others who are with us in photo. I know a lot of them were hooting with the Owls late last night, so I'm glad to see who can hoot with the Owls and soar with the Eagles the next morning. And you are... You are the ones. Sojourner Truth would appreciate that. I wanted to come here this morning to pay my respects to all of you, to sing the praises of Yvette Clark. She's a magnificent member of Congress. With all the accomplishments that were spoken about, it's also about her temperament, about her civility. She's a lady and a fighter, and she's just so, so strong. But let me just say a couple things, because right now, you would see me run out. We're on the floor debating the measure that the Republicans are determined to shut down government. In defiance of all of the outreach that our President Obama has, and respect he has extended to them, they are saying, no, Mr. President, there's nothing we can agree on, and never is when we're going to agree with you. Well, nothing and never does not work for the American people. And so if you'll forgive me if I run, because I'd love to spend time with some of you, some Californians, Alice Hoffman, my friend for many years. But here's what I came to tell you. When I became Speaker, I said we have to have more diversity, not only in the Congress, but in the statues in the Capitol. And we initiated that we would do some of those things. We dedicated Frederick Douglass recently, but not while I was Speaker, but we passed the bill then. One of the first ones that we did was Sojourner Truth. And the day, many of you were there, the day that we dedicated the bust of Sojourner Truth in Emancipation Hall, it was the beginning of the Obama administration, and Michelle Obama came to the dedication. And she said that day in her remarks, she said, I know Sojourner Truth would be absolutely thrilled to see a woman Speaker of the House. But I can't even imagine what she would think to see me, Michelle Obama, as the First Lady of the United States. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Isn't that beautiful? But Sojourner Truth, if we're declaring why we are Sojourner Truth, I will identify, as maybe some of you already have, with her statement. I am Sojourner Truth because she said, if women want any more rights than they've got, why don't they just take them and not be talking about it? So that's what we intend to do. In her fight, she was a suffragette and she was an abolitionist. And when we got the right to vote, the paper said women given the right to vote. No. Fought for, demanded, sacrificed for, marched for. They weren't given. We weren't given the right to vote. But and that changed the environment. We have to change, make our own environment again today. And I think to truly unleash the power of women and honor the legacy of Sojourner Truth, we are proposing an economic agenda for women. Principle being, and Donna Edwards is taking the lead on this, so I want to salute her on this. She is taking the lead. When women succeed, America succeeds. And an economic agenda for women. Now, why it unleashes and why we have to make our own environment and change this incrementalism and just kick open the door and say, let's have it a different environment where we can succeed better rather than incrementally better, bigger. And that is about pay, equal pay for equal work, and raising the minimum wage to a living wage. It's about paid leave. Yeah, we have the family medical leave. It's a beautiful thing where it is paid. But we need paid leave to unleash the power of women, and we need quality, affordable child care for all of America's families to unleash the power of men. Walter Reuther said you can't separate the bread box and the ballot box. So in order to make these things happen, we have to win at the ballot box. In order to win at the ballot box, we have to make sure that every vote, that everyone who's eligible can vote, and their vote will be cast. So one of the most fundamental things we have to do to unleash the power of all Americans is to pass a Voting Rights Act to correct what the Supreme Court did. So it's all connected. Back to Sojourner, she worked for women to get the right to vote, and of course she was an abolitionist. But in order to honor her legacy, we have to do everything we can. Because I think I see here a room full of dreamers with a plan. Thank you, Yvette Clarke. Thank you, Donna. Thank you all very much.
So again, good morning, everyone. Let me thank Dee Marshall for introducing us and for opening our program this morning. And let me thank all of you for agreeing to participate. Let me thank her again for participating as our moderator this morning and for her unyielding support as a Sojourner Truth Legacy Project Advisory Board member. I'd like to also thank Ms. Zavon Baptiste for the beautiful song, the beautiful rendition. Would we give her a round of applause? And I'd just like to note that not only is she, like me, a Jamaican American, but she's currently working with the Calvert Foundation, and she's from my district as well. Additionally, we owe a debt of gratitude to our wonderful planning team for this gathering. The young people on my staff, Kenya Handy, Ms. Shawnice Washington, President and CEO of the foundation, and her staff, the women of the Congressional Black Caucus and their staffs, and our advisory committee members, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, Dee Marshall, Carol Frazier, and Stephanie Foster, all of whom have worked tirelessly to plan a day that we will all remember. Let's give them a round of applause. I'd like to add to that we've had some phenomenal women from the corporate sector who have embraced the concept of Black women coming together to have a conversation that is unique to our experience. Yesterday we had a reception last evening, and it was stated that we had 14 women in the CBC. Actually, it is now 16 women with the addition of Robin Kelly and Joyce Beatty. Robin Kelly of Illinois, Joyce Beatty of Ohio. So our ranks are beginning to move up. We're 16 out of 535 on Capitol Hill, and we're going to pack a mighty punch with your support and your encouragement. Now that the housekeeping is complete, good morning, sisters. What an incredible day and time for us to meet here in the nation's capital for the Sojourner Truth Legacy Projects panel, which will explore the Voting Rights Act and the SCOTUS, that's what we call the Supreme Court of the United States, ruling and Black women's right to vote. It is my hope that this briefing and dialogue for action will educate, engage, empower Black women and girls to not only vote and protect the vote, but will inspire us to collectively leverage that vote as insurance for a better, more prosperous tomorrow. Our motto is, rise up for justice. Our motto is, rise up for justice. Our motto is, rise up for justice. That's what we're talking about. Voting is the basic tenet of citizenship. In order for Black people to become full participants in our civil society and the beneficiaries of the rights, protections, and privileges our government has to offer, we must vote, and vote in record numbers on all levels of government, not just for president. Hello, somebody. So I encourage you to make the most out of your time here, engage with our panelists, each dynamic in their own way, then take back what you've learned and engage those in your circles and community to act. Too many of our ancestors, and some of us in this room, were imprisoned, harassed, attacked, viciously murdered for the right to vote. Our forebear, Sojourner Truth, once said, quote, "If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they is asking to do it, the men better let them." End quote. I want you to sit back, put on your thinking caps and enjoy today's discussion. Please make the most out of the interactive session, and I look forward to working with you and my colleagues in the CBC to protect our right to vote and to ensure that we as Black women continue to lead our community into full citizenship, equity, and prosperity. Enjoy the rest of your morning.
All right, wonderful. Well, again, we are just so honored to be here. I don't know about you, but I am always excited to be in the presence of amazing women and honored to be here. We're going to make a slight adjustment in the program just so that we can have the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee come. But before she comes, let me just give her the proper introduction. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is an influential and forceful voice in Washington. She is serving her 10th term. That's 20 years as a member of the, yes, a round of applause. 20 years as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. She represents the 18th Congressional District of Texas, centered in Houston, which is the energy capital of the world. That would be Shell clapping. That's Shell. Thank you, Shell. Considered by many as the voice of reason, she is dedicated to upholding the constitutional rights of all people. During Congresswoman Jackson Lee's tenure in Congress, she has served on various committees, including the Committee of Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, and Judiciary. Let's give her a warm round of applause, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Thank our wonderful Mistress of Ceremonies, and we thank her for taking her time to be with us. And we thank you for taking your time to be with us. And I think you can give yourselves a very rousing applause. That'll get you stirred up this morning. Give yourselves a rousing applause. Thank you so very much. And let me thank our CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation for yielding, because as our leader said, a vote is pending. And certainly I want to thank Sharon, who has been a faithful supporter and advocate for the empowering of women and your own personal leadership. You are deserving of honor. Give Sharon a very big applause. It is good to be here with all of my colleagues and to be here with the wonderful panelists that are coming, and as well to thank Yvette Clarke, our sister in Brooklyn, because we call each other sisters, for continuing with the birth of the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project that I am so proud to have helped give birth to the establishment of the Sojourner Truth Statute. Let me thank Carolyn Kilpatrick, our sister as well. You never stop being our sister. It was exciting to see Carolyn and Barbara Lee. I can see them now sitting on the front row as we were introducing Sojourner to the United States Capitol, and I could see our mutual growth of this project, of what we could do to be able to establish a legacy for Sojourner Truth. And of course, we know that our chaplain, our spiritual leader, who Barbara has been one that has brought calmness to the Congress. And she leaned over to me and said, I think the Congress needs prayer. Don't you think that for a moment? The Congress needs prayer. Let me quickly tell you why I am here. And as I think of Sojourner, I think of principled and undeterred. But it is always important to know your history. And I want you, as women who are moving forward and accepting the clarion call and making sure that the Voter Rights Act is reauthorized. I serve on the Judiciary Committee. I'm on the working group. We're writing the language now. But you know what? It will not be reauthorized if we do not have a tsunami of people pushing the Congress saying, if not now, then when? We want the Voting Rights Act that will step in the way of the barriers of voting. And so I believe that you must be empowered with this history. For more than a decade, we fought, myself and the Honorable C. Dolores Tucker, fought to put the first African-American woman statute in the United States Capitol in the whole history of the nation. C. Dolores Tucker, you should remember that name. President of the National Congress of Black Women, and a woman who started protesting at the age of 16 in Philadelphia when she didn't like the fact that they wouldn't allow black athletes in hotels. Most people don't know that. She protested the rest of her life, and she came and had an official seat in the United States Congress demanding that the suffragette statute that was in the Capitol already, and that was a fight, by the way, the suffragette statute was in the basement. As we move the story forward, I can just have you imagine that C. Dolores Tucker every single day was going to members of Congress. We wrote the language for the legislation to get Sojourner Truth here. And we thought it was a simple task. Just pass it. Put Sojourner Truth here. In fact, we wanted her on the side of the statute with the other women, Susan B. Anthony and others, where she should have been. Abolitionists. The woman who spoke in the conference in the Congress of Convention talking about women's rights and led her life for a period of years fighting against slavery. Wouldn't that seem that she should be right there where the suffragette statute was? Well, ladies and gentlemen, unprincipled, principled and undeterred. And so for almost a decade, we shuttled between the House and the Senate and the House and the Senate. And finally, as Senator Clinton, then Senator Clinton, joined us on this legislation, battling senators who didn't want to find a way to do this, battling the House, going against the Republican House, sitting in the Rayburn room. You have to come and find our spot. We made a dent in the chair, sitting there late at night. What is the strategy? And finally, on one late night in the 2008 session, almost at the last minute of that session, I was able to go to the floor of the House with the legislation, having worked the deal in the Senate, to be able to pass this legislation, principled and undeterred. I think we were moved by Shirley Chisholm, the first African-American woman, I think from Yvette's district, that has served out of that area and in the United States Congress, and before my predecessor, the Honorable Barbara Jordan, a principled, undeterred warrior, unbossed, who also started the Black Congress of Women. And those legacies kept us going. I want you to think of them when you're at the water cooler or the boss has said something. Remember Shirley's words, unbought and unbossed. These are words that you can, principled and undeterred. And so in the midnight hour, just a little humor as I go to my seat. I'm waiting to get to the podium because this is going to be passed. And I get up and a member says, objection. Objection. And I said, oh, Lord, is the Capitol Police going to come and arrest me? I won't call any name, for tackling. The leader said ladylike. I am ladylike. I was sitting over there. I didn't jump up and say, Nancy, I'm here. I'm ladylike. But I said, are they going to come and get me for tackling this member? I ran to the member and I said, what can we work out? What is your issue? The issue was with something else, but you have the right to stop someone to get your issue done. You never saw a member of Congress take her spinach and move from one member to the next to get those boys to settle their issue so that I could rise to the floor before the midnight hour, because that's when the gavel was coming down. We made it before the midnight hour, ladies. Principled and undeterred. Carry that with you. Sojourner Truth bill passed. We ultimately had to get a resolution to put her in the emancipation, when I say to have the ceremony. But the real job was, in tribute to the Congress of Black Women, we collectively raised the money. A Black woman sculptured her. And so I want you to feel the power. When you go to the Emancipation Hall, she's the first African-American woman placed in the United States Capitol. The United States Capitol. And many people will say, it doesn't feed us. It didn't end the criminalization of our young men. It didn't stop Trayvon Martin. But what it did do is to say that you are real. Your place is of honor. You deserve to be honored. Black women will never be left out. Principled and undeterred. Go forth, accept the clarion call. And I know with the power in this room, there will be nothing that will turn us around. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you so much. And now we're going to bring to the podium for also for acknowledgments, Shawnice Washington, the president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Would you please give her a warm round of applause?
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, on your way out for that moving, rousing commentary. And welcome to each of you to the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project, as well as the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's 43rd Annual Legislative Conference. It is my pleasure to welcome our sponsors who not only support the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's mission to develop leaders, inform policy, and educate the public, but have also shown leadership in their professional arenas for the advancement of women. Prudential, as our title sponsor, Ms. Sharon Taylor, also a member of our board of directors. She is our title sponsor for this morning. And I also want to acknowledge our other Sojourner Truth sponsors, Ford, and we're joined by Pamela Alexander, also a member of our board of directors. SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, UFCW, Food and Commercial Workers, Mars, and Pfizer. Let's give them all a round of applause. You know, one of the founding members of the Congressional Black Caucus was a woman, Representative Shirley Chisholm of Brooklyn, and Congresswoman Jackson Lee just mentioned her. Described as unbossed and unbought, she set the standard to create an environment where other women committed to being great leaders can network and build relationships. I think it's very safe to say that we can also describe Congresswoman Yvette Clarke as unbossed and unbought. So she's a dynamic woman, individual, and a phenomenal leader with regards to our Sojourner Truth efforts. Today, we applaud all of the women of the Congressional Black Caucus for their contribution and service. And without further ado, I would like to bring to you Ms. Sharon Taylor with Prudential, our title sponsor, one of our board members and good friend, to bring you greetings. Sharon?
Good morning. In the interest of time, let me just say a couple of words regarding the importance of Sojourner Truth and events like this that breathe life and give honor to the legacy that she has created for all of us. I am very proud to work for a company that values the power of one's voice. We encourage our employees to raise their voice through surveys, through an open door policy, through activism in the community, and through bringing to our organization officials on both sides of the aisle to present their case and enabling our associates to make informed choices. So being informed, understanding one's history, and making a choice is incredibly important to the firm that I represent and to me personally. Just as a sidebar, I was talking with my daughter last evening. I arrived late for an event I was hosting and I missed the event. And I was bemoaning the fact that I missed the Sojourner Truth reception last evening because she indeed is one of my idols. And I was reminded by my daughter the fact that she considers herself a Sojourner Truth woman. My daughter lived in Georgia for a number of years, and she worked tirelessly on a political campaign, shall we say, in a very red state. And her guy didn't win. And she was so bummed out about that, she says, you know what, I don't know if I have the stomach for this political process. And I am from a family of people who were actively engaged in the political process. My father held elected office, my mom held elected office in town, and we were always encouraged, not encouraged, it was demanded that we understand the issues and vote. And we passed that legacy, that appreciation on to my daughter. And she reminded me that last year, during the campaign, in the state of Philadelphia where she lives right now, the manifestation of voter suppression started to rear its ugly head. And my daughter went to an HBCU, and she and many of her friends called their Spelman sisters during critical voting times. And they didn't go to law school that day, they didn't go to jobs that day, they didn't go to church that day, canceled everything that they needed to do that day to be at the polls, to drive people to vote, to ensure that the right to vote was maintained and preserved. So she told me last evening, I am a Sojourner Truth woman. Every woman in this room has the capacity and the responsibility to carry forth that legacy. If not us, then who? I'm proud to work for a company that says raise your voice. I'm proud to be part of a family that says raise that voice. And you change voices, you change the course of history one person at a time. So let's create that multiplier effect around this very important issue, learn all we can, and do all we can to preserve the right to vote. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
All right. Well, again, we just want to acknowledge you all, everyone who got up early this morning, whether you were out late last night partying or whatever your situation is. We're so glad that you're here. So we're going to now call up the panel, and I'm going to introduce them, and we're going to jump into this conversation. And I am going to believe that when we leave this room, we may leave the room not only empowered with information, but we will be empowered to take action with some very specific action steps in terms of what we might do, what we need to do to ensure that we still have the right to vote and an equal and fair opportunity to vote. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce them. So we're going to go with Ms. Barbara Arnwine, President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. I'm sorry. Oh, she's an award. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, yes. Is she here? She was here. Oh, okay. All right, so Barbara Arnwine, I'll tell you about her if you have not. You have to know about Barbara Arnwine, but let me just give a fair introduction. Barbara Arnwine, she is President and Executive Director of the National Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law since 1989. She is an internationally renowned for her contributions on critical justice issues, including the passage of the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1991 and creation of the renowned 2011 Voting Rights Map of Shame. How many of you have seen that map? Yes, I don't know if we have that today. We may have that as a handout. She is also a graduate of Scripps College and Duke University of Law. She continues to champion civil rights and racial justice issues nationally and internationally. Her work also includes immigrant rights, judicial diversity, criminal justice reform, racial profiling, and healthcare disparities. She is a prominent leader of Election Protection, the nation's largest nonpartisan voter protection coalition. Let's give a warm round of applause for Ms. Barbara Arnwine. Next, Stephanie Brown. I'm going to call Stephanie Brown to come and take a seat. Seat number 3 would be for you, Ms. Stephanie. Stephanie Brown James has dedicated her life to empowering people to organize and advocate for justice and equality in their communities. She is a native of Bedford Heights, Ohio. Stephanie is a CEO and founding partner of Vestige Strategies, which is a DC-based public affairs firm that specializes in grassroots community and civic engagement strategies for Fortune 1000 companies. Most recently, Stephanie served as the National African American Vote Director for 2012 Obama for America campaign. As a result of Stephanie's work, she's contributed greatly to the historic turnout of the African American community, which, of course, we voted at a higher rate than white voters for the first time, approximately 66%, despite what you may have heard. And she is formerly the National Field Director for the NAACP, a 2003 graduate of Howard. Stephanie is the founder and the Executive Director of Brown Girls Lead. A round of applause for Stephanie Brown James. And then we have Ms. Alice Huffman. She's president of the California NAACP. She began her tenure as president in January 2000, and under her leadership, the organization has accelerated into one of the most sought-after organizations in California's policy arena. She is a member of the National Board of Directors of the NAACP. Huffman is also president and CEO of her own consulting firm, AC Public Affairs Incorporated. Huffman is a member of the newly elected Attorney General's transition team, and she has many distinguished honors. The most recent received in 2009 were the California Legislative Black Caucus Heritage and Legend Awards. Please give a warm round of applause for Ms. Alice Huffman. And then last but certainly not least, Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner. She is the president and co-founder of the Skinner Leadership Institute. She is trusted advisor, public policy strategist, faith leader, author, lecturer, businesswoman, educator, executive coach, and mentor, my mentor. And the Reverend Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner has made an indelible imprint in American public policy, government, and community relations. She is the former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, co-founder of the Congressional Black Caucus Prayer Breakfast, and current president of Skinner Leadership Institute, co-chair of the National African American Clergy Network, and a member of the White House Council on Faith-Based, a member of the White House Council. Let's give her a warm round of applause. All right, and so our discussion today, excuse me, it is a clarion call, and it's a Black woman's perspective on voter rights. And I'm going to come over and take a seat, and we're going to start this conversation, but I want to prepare you all that we're going to have a conversation, and then we're going to take action in this room. We're going to ask you to participate in several breakout sessions, and we will still honor your time, but we're going to ask you to engage and participate in the action and what happens from here. So, are we on? All right. So let's start with this, and here's why I want to start with the basics. I often participate in conversations about voter rights. However, in all of the conversations, or a lot of the conversations that I would participate, someone from the outside looking in. I'm not in politics, I'm not in government, I'm in a whole nother space, so I'm not really actively engaged, nor am I aware on the latest laws and policies and when there's changes. So if we could have a conversation for the room about what just happened with the Voter Rights Act and the decision made in June, if we could just have a perspective and a conversation about that at the baseline, assuming that we know nothing other than we go to the polls, we vote. I'm happy that, we didn't get handed the opportunity to vote. I get that you all marched and died and people, paid for the right. We weren't given, it wasn't handed. There wasn't, members of Congress weren't sitting back and thinking, oh, well, I think it's a good idea that we would allow them in. No, we had to go to battle. We got that. So can you please, I'm going to start with you, Barbara Onwine. Can you just break this all the way down for us, please?
Yes. First of all, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And thank you so much. I just want to salute Congresswoman Yvette Clarke for leading this magnificent project, and all the amazing women of the Congressional Black Caucus. Thank you for this fight. Thank you for this opportunity to talk today. And I thank God always. The Supreme Court on June 25th of this year issued a decision called Shelby versus Holder. And that's for Shelby County, Alabama versus Eric Holder, Attorney General of the United States. And in that decision, the Supreme Court struck down and declared unconstitutional Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act. Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act basically laid out a coverage formula for states that had, and for jurisdictions, meaning townships, water boards, Board of Education, counties, cities, all that had a history of racial discrimination in voting. It required, by identifying who those counties were, Section 4 subjected those identified jurisdictions to the coverage of Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. Section 5 basically is what's called the pre-clearance provision. Section 5 requires that any covered jurisdiction must submit to either the Department of Justice or to a federal district court for the District of Columbia any proposed change in law or voting practice or voting procedure for it to be pre-cleared before it could be implemented. So, in other words, any change, moving a polling place, any change, going from at-large to single-member districts or the opposite, any change had to be reviewed, had to be submitted, had to be reviewed, and had to be declared non-discriminatory in order for it to be implemented. By eviscerating Section 4, which is what the Supreme Court did when it said it was unconstitutional, it basically meant that 12,000 previously covered jurisdictions are no longer covered by Section 5. So my friend Elaine Jones, who's going to be acknowledged at the Phoenix Awards, loves to say that Section 5 is like this beautiful car that you got that somebody gives you, but they don't give you the key to the ignition. Because Section 4 is what drove Section 5. So that is what the court did. They basically said that the reason why they did this was based on two legal principles. Very strange.
Okay,
yes. Okay.
See, we were getting ready to go to school.
All right.
We were going to need a dictionary, and we were going to need to, okay, that's good. So, how many of you in the room were familiar with what happened in June around our voting rights? Okay, most, half of the room. Dr. Skinner, can you want to say more about where we are? And, because the one thing I was thinking about is how is it that we celebrate, the March on Washington, the 50th anniversary in August, and then, but in June, it's almost like we took 10 steps forward, or 10 steps forward, 20 steps back. So can you just share with us June of this year and the Supreme Court's ruling, if you could just provide insight, again, for the average individual, the average American in the room first, and then for brown girls, for us African-American women, what does this mean?
Politics is simply the art and science of deciding who gets the money. We got that, right? Okay. So once you have that, you understand, you got that, you understand that the most vulnerable and the weakest and the ones with the least voting power, money power, don't get any of the money. Okay, so it's really money, power, vote, all connected. What happened, per our attorney here, is they basically cut down our ability to access money, power. That's it. You can go, you can break it down a whole bunch of other ways, but if you don't vote, you don't get your streets clean. If you don't vote, nobody cares whether your kids go to college or not. If you don't vote, nobody cares whether you get health care. If you don't vote, you don't count. That's the way it is. Okay?
Did you all get that just from a different perspective? The bottom line is the bottom line. All right, and so chime in here, please. Alice, do you have a perspective on, where you were in June of this year when the Supreme Court ruled that Section 4 of the VRA of 65 is out? There's no more protection. I want to hear from you, and then I want to go to, you who had such a large impact on getting young people out to vote. What does this mean? So can we just have you all chime in on just the basics here?
Well, I'm from California. And the way I felt about it was the beginning of the massive take back that started with Baca, when all of a sudden we lost our right for affirmative action in colleges, Ward Connolly, who wiped out affirmative action. We live in a country that is fickle. They give it to you one year and they take it back 5 years later. And in my opinion, we have to talk about this. I can see everybody in the room here knows a lot about this. So when we go home, we have to talk plain English to women and tell them what it means, that it is a take back of rights that we still haven't fully realized. We still only make 68 cents to every $1 that a man makes. We still have our right for to determine our bodies being attacked by men who want to tell us what to do. And so this is a move in these two Americas that we live in to take back the one America that is anti-conservative, right-wing, don't want to pay taxes, don't want to build schools. All of this is a movement to take that money off the table because we are the ones who need it the most and they don't want us to have it.
Amen.
Amen. That's right. Amen.
Amen.
And so, Stephanie, please chime in here, considering the work that you've done with the Obama campaign and just, I mean, amazing impact in terms of voter turnout. So please share with us your perspective.
Well, I do want to take us back a few months. Actually, now almost a year. I can't believe we're almost a year out from the elections taking place in 2012. The good news is that African American voter turnout continues to increase. It has over the past few decades. So that's the good news.
That's a good thing.
We had, for the first time in 2012, African Americans voted at a higher rate than white citizens in this country.
That's right.
That's a good thing. We had a historic level,
That's a great thing.
and black women led it. And black women continue to lead that effort in making sure that those in our households, those at our churches, those in our communities are turning out to vote. Now, we did see, however, in 2012, that we did have a decrease in young African Americans voting. And so there's some work that we still need to do in that arena. But the good news is that we're getting out there to vote. Now, the challenge is, especially as we come up on the midterm elections in 2014, that we continue to see a significant drop off from the presidential election years to the midterm elections. In fact, from 2008 to 2010, there was a 20-point decrease in African American turnout. Now, that's with the Voting Rights Act still intact.
That's right.
So now, if you put in place the outcome of the Voting Rights Act and you put that up against the fact that black folks just stay home when it comes to midterms, we're in a serious challenge. So at the end of the day, we have to figure out how do we as a community of individuals make sure that we have consistent engagement of the community. I agree with Ms. Huffman on most things. And I agree with her on the point about women taking the lead and taking the charge to engage our community. The challenge is that oftentimes we wait to engage our communities until it's election time.
That's right. That's right.
If I don't see you day to day talking to me about civic engagement, why would I listen to you and trust your voice when you're coming to me just when it's time to register to vote for the upcoming election? So we have to make sure that we are focused on creating a community, a conscious community of those who are civically engaged 365 days a year, because it won't cut it just for us to wake up when it's presidential election time.
Thank you for that. And so let's just talk about, I want to just talk a little bit more about where we are and how this affects the community, our communities, how it affects women. But I want to talk about that before we go to solutions, because I like to talk about, then what do we do? I'm more into, well, just tell me what we need to do. I think there's such power in action, in doing, and where there's accountability. And I think that's where we miss the boat. We don't know what to do. So when we go back home, the people that leave this room, there should be something specific that we're held accountable to do. And so, but can we just continue the conversation in the direction in terms of, so for black women, how does this impact us specifically? I guess general, then specific. Dr. Skinner, do you want to start there?
Well, first of all, before we talk about solutions, we need to say that what do we have? See, we often talk about what's been taken away, but God can work in what's left.
Amen.
Okay, so once we understand that, what this means, Dee, is that we have to assess, almost like a military strategy, where our power still is.
That's right.
It's still in the black church. I don't care what your problem is. You don't like the pastor is messed up, whatever. The church is still that stable institution where over 70% of our people go. So as to what we have a place where our political leaders, our educational leaders, our civic leaders, our legal leaders, our civil rights leaders can partner, Dee, with the black church. It means that black women have been the backbone. Not the front, that we've been the front bone, the side bone, and the backbone of the whole of the stability of black empowerment for vote. So what this means for black women is that we have to get closer, more collaborative, and more connected, and more coalition building than ever. Because if you think 2010 with the Tea Party, as our sister says so well, was a shock, there is a concerted plan right now that with the suppression measures that Barbara Anwar and the Lawyers Committee work diligently on all the time to take down 25% of our vote. The majority of our vote are women. Overwhelmingly, women vote between 45 and 65. We are the voters. So they're aiming at us. And so we have to be smart enough, Dee, to say, oh, that's your plan? Oh, no. And now then we'll get to what you asked earlier. What is our plan? But the issue is that just know, don't get shocked. The plan is to take down, as Sister said, everything we've gained. And having a black president in the White House reminds people of what they lost.
That's right.
So that makes them even angrier. And so we've got our work cut out. For us as women, we have got our work cut out. The black women in the church are ready. I just want to tell you that.
Yes.
Okay.
We're ready for them.
Ain't I a woman?
Ain't I a woman?
Somebody say, ain't I a woman?
Ain't I a woman?
Did you feel that? Yeah, you felt that energy in the room. Barbara, can you please share in terms of, again, how does this impact us, generally, specifically, community African-American women? How?
Well, the biggest impact for all of us is that in the light of this Shelby decision, within 2 hours of the court announcing what it had decided, that Section 4 was no longer valid, so Section 5 was ineffective, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi announced that they were going to start instituting their voter suppression laws.
Within 2 hours.
Within 2 hours.
It's amazing.
And the Texas law blocked. We sued Texas and had stopped their law using Section 5 in 2012. That law basically would knock out about 800,000 voters. That's a decisive number of voters being knocked out in one state. So I want you to know that even though, I want to go back to what we still got. Even though Section 4 and Section 5 now are on ice, in essence, we still got Section 2. So this week, 2 days ago, the Lawyers Committee, the NAACP with Kim Kennan here, who is their wonderful, wonderful general counsel, and the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, and the Brennan Center and others, we filed suit against the state of Texas to stop that voter ID law. Because, you know, the beauty of Section 5 was that it stopped people before they could institute the laws. It's harder to come behind them and sue, but we're suing because that's one of the tools. North Carolina done gone crazy. We all know that. They just have lost their ever-loving mind. And have passed the worst monster voter ID law. And if you want the face of North Carolina, know this name, Rosanelle Eaton. Know this sister. I mean, we ought to all have T-shirts with her face on it. Because Rosanelle Eaton was the first African-American woman registered to vote in her county. And the only way she got registered was she had to pass a literacy exam. Her father had wanted to vote, but he couldn't pass the bubbles of soap, the bubbles from the soap bar.
Right, couldn't count, right.
And she passed the literacy test, first black. According to her, she's registered over 4,000 African Americans to vote. She's very proud of her voting record, has voted every single election. But guess what? This new law knocks her out. Because her birth certificate doesn't match, the name on her birth certificate doesn't match any of her ID. Now, you know how we call our children something, and we name them something else, and forget what we named them, and all the rest of it. You know, my sister was 26 before she discovered that her name, we had always called her Joyce Ornwine. We discovered that her actual name on her birth certificate was Baby Joe. So you see, these are the problems that we find, and she now can't vote. And guess what she said? She said, I'm fed up. At 92 years old, I'm fed up and I'm fired up. And that's the attitude we got to have. Because that's the other thing we got, Barbara. We got to fight.
That's right. That's right.
You see, we lose when we give up fighting.
That's right.
I mean, the battle's lost when you think you can't win.
That's right. That's right.
The battle's lost when you think that it doesn't matter what you do as an individual. It matters everything that you do.
That's right.
As an individual. So I think we're going to get into solutions, but I just want to say that we need to make sure that we're thinking progressively about everything that we do. If they want to block us from having the right to vote because we need to have voter ID, then we got to go out and help people get voter IDs.
That's right.
If they say that they don't want us to vote because they're trying to knock out 25% of our people, well, guess what? 37% of all eligible African Americans aren't registered to vote. Let's go register.
Go register.
Take it up a notch.
So you went into the question that I was going to ask in terms of, tell us about the areas of impact, meaning the states. So we already know Texas. So can we just run down the list so that if there's people here, you know if it's your state. Now, when I was preparing and thinking about that question in my head, I thought, well, some people are going to think, but if I don't live in that state, then I don't need to do anything.
Right.
And we don't want to know that. But can we go back to the map so you are informed? If you're online right now, if you're on social media, Facebook or Twitter, feel free to share whatever you need to share right now about the conversation happening in this room.
Any of those states in red are the battleground states where we got to fight. Because those are the states that have passed the restrictive voting rights laws. And they're really bad. They hurt blacks and Latinos and women. The blue states are states that got halfway crazy laws, but they're not all the way as bad as the red states. All the white states are states that are up for grabs. So if you want to know where the fight is, it's in every state in red there. And that's a lot of states, folks. But that's where the battle is.
And you have this handout in the package, in your package. Now, and so do these represent the 9 states, or do we no longer even need to have a conversation about the 9 states that were part of the pre-clearance? We don't need to have that conversation?
No, because coming back, what Congress will do, Congress must pass, as Congresswoman Clark will tell you, we must pass a new Section 4, and we got to strengthen Section 2, and we got to strengthen Section 3, which is the bail-in provisions. But the prior states, by the time we finish, it's going to look very different about what's going to be covered under the Voting Rights Act. And remember, the whole country's covered by Section 2, but Section 5 and 4 are going to look somewhat different. But it is important to know what those prior states were, and it's in your information, and I just want you but the fight is in the red states.
That's right.
Okay, yes, please.
You had asked a question about the impact, specifically on women.
Yes.
And earlier, the House of Representatives just passed over $40 billion in cuts to food programs.
Sickening.
So we're in a situation now where over 100,000 young people will not have school lunches.
That's right.
And over 4 million Americans will not have food assistance.
That's right.
As many of you know, women are a growing number of the heads of households in our community, which means that they are the ones who are making sure that there's food on the table, that our kids have clothes on their back. So to break it down in real terms, when you vote, the person who you voted for or didn't vote for, because if you, and I don't know if you know this, but when you don't vote, you are casting a vote too.
Yes. Right.
Yes, you are.
So
that's right.
The people who are elected to serve the community get to Congress or get to our state legislatures, and they are making decisions that literally impact our everyday lives. And I think sometimes we talk very highbrow about this voting issue. At the end of the day, these are our daily lives, daily decisions that are being made for us, oftentimes against what is the best, what's in the best interest of the community. And so the votes that will now be impacted because of, or the lack of votes that will be impacted because of this decision is real, and it's in terms that we need to continue to talk about in our communities so that people understand how significant this is to their everyday lives.
Yeah, she is on point. Talk about health care.
Right.
Health care we thought was passed. It was. It's the law. 31 million covered. No pre-existing conditions, certain care for women, mammograms and the like. There are buku tons of money now aimed at defunding that. Right now, the Congress people can tell you that. How critical is that to black women? We are the ones with diabetes, heart, health, other kinds of issues. So sister is right. We got to break it down when we talk about it so people can understand this is not an intellectual issue. This is about your ability to get your doctor's visits. It's about your cancer care. It's about your diabetes, your prescription. So I think when we talk to people, mobilizing people is hard work. It's hard work even in the church. She's right. You can't do it at election time. We have to start now for 2014. Because guess what? Our people don't necessarily trust us if they don't know us. And so we're talking to pastors about that right now, and we'll talk about that when we get to solution, about how exactly can our sororities, our women's organizations, all those political organizations, how can our student organization, how can our churches now begin to mobilize so that what is being written for us to happen will not happen.
Well, I want to add to that comment, because there are 23 million African American women in this country. A slew of us are educated. Many of us are in professional jobs, and we just talk to each other. We are in silos. The masses of the people that we represent don't have a clue as to what it is we're talking about this morning.
That's right.
We don't reach out to them because we're too busy. But the fate of our community is going to rest on whether or not we reach out in areas where we no longer go or we're afraid to go. They're our children, they're our offsprings, they're being murdered. I mean, all of the stuff that we all know in this room is happening. We are the last ones to reach out, reach down, pull up one, and explain it to them. You can motivate people once you tell them what the real facts are. But as the sister said, both of these sisters, it has to be in plain English. And it has to be with love and respect and not fear and disdain. And because we have a growing poverty, a growing amount of poverty in our community, that means we are moving this way, and we're not looking back helping those who don't work. A single woman with $25,000 a year to live on is nothing today. The minimum wage is nothing today. We got working poor people that we don't talk to. They talk to them in church, but how many of them don't go to church?
That's right. That's right.
How many of them walk the streets in the little gangbangers outfits?
That's right.
That we're afraid to say, hello, how you doing, brother?
Yeah.
You know, and every time you do it, they say, fine, sister. They might keep walking, but then somebody spoke today. So I'm on solutions a little bit. We bought a solution piece, but I'm just telling you, we have the power in black women if we just decide to network with each other to change America. These few women up here are doing their part. All of us women out there can do our part, and then it will come together.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So before we get to solutions, I want to just clarify and make sure we understand. So as a result of the decision, what has to happen to change? And I heard two things. I heard you, I believe on MSNBC, Congress needs to move on a decision. And then I heard Dr. Skinner chime in, but if they don't, whatever the requirements are, that's what we need to do. So can we just highlight that for a second so we're clear about what happened and now what that means? Because we believe, if we're on the outside, I think looking in, we believe that we're waiting on Congress, or we put pressure there to make the change. But can you just clarify what we do, what needs to happen?
Yeah, we're each in different communities, but all of us are in multiple groups. You're a sorority, you have, whether you're church or not, you have some multiple groups. I think don't think about it like my organization, think about it like my sphere of influence. Who are the women that you could gather at your home over, food? We love to eat. So gather with women with some basics that we talked about. Sisters, this is how it affects you. I think we have to say, are we connecting with women who are not able to invite us back? My working at Blue High School, where it's in Ward 8, where nobody wants to go, has really opened my eyes about the gap between the poor and non-poor African Americans. We're not even talking about racism. You're talking about our attitudes about the poor, and the sense that we have left the community. We're in gated communities and people have been left. And I have met mothers of the children at Blue High School who are now, we're talking to about voting, talking to about the relationship between their kid being able to get school lunch and voting. They get it. So Dee, I think specifically we have to, each of us decide, what action can I take? If I just listed 20 women that I could have over for a weekend, would they be diverse incomes? Would they be women from church, sorority, et cetera? So if I just made myself a collective of one and made my circle diverse, and I took whatever map of shame and broke it down, and my sister broke it down and said to the women, we will in this room make sure all of us take 5 more women and vote. Who in here is not registered? In other words, take responsibility relationally, because we are relational people. We just are. We don't trust you until I believe you care about me. Okay, so we got to start with our relationships and make those relationships accountable.
But we have to start by midterm, as was said earlier.
Yeah, we got to start now.
If Congress, here's the deal: if we can't get Congress to act, then we have to change Congress. That's simple. We have to become motivated as change agents, and we have to know where the block is. You got to get the thing reauthorized. So if Congress is not going to do it, then what do we need to do? We need to change Congress. And so I know we got the blue states and the red states, but when you watch the people who came out for President Obama's second term, they came from all color states.
That's right.
I saw the lines in places where I thought we wouldn't have a line of black people voting, because we became incensed that the right wing thought we were stupid and they were going to take away our prized possession, the President of the United States. We got these people all over the state. We get to NAACP's alert on what we should be doing. There's action we can take, but we may just have to move to change Congress.
Yeah. So that's one of the things we have to do. We have a slide up about what you can do to help, and I want to just step back a little bit, because if you look at the African American vote, it's not the black middle class that's only voting.
That's right.
That's right.
I mean, let's be very clear. It's a lot of African Americans who are unemployed.
That's right.
A lot of poor folks who stood out there in those lines for 1, 2,
for hours.
For 10 hours. I mean, come on, let's get it really straight. And I know that when I was tweeting, I saw young folks who you might call gang bangers retweeting, saying, we got to vote, folks. I just wanted to be clear that it has been a intergenerational battle.
Yes.
And it's a cross-income battle. It does mean that we need to do much more organizing everywhere. Because a lot of folks sitting up talking to me about they ain't gonna vote are so-called educated people. And they so-called, and it makes me so angry. But anyway, I'm not gonna go off on all that. Here's some of the things that we can do. We gotta demand that Congress do what it must do on the VRA. We got to educate and mobilize.
Barbara, could I stop you? Because when we say things like that, having worked on Capitol Hill for Congressman Dellum, a lot of people are intimidated by Congress. So when we say Congress, so the question is, how do we start? Are there places I can go and just get offline a sample letter that I can send?
Right,
I may not have ever written.
We bought a packet.
Okay, so I think we got to help one another with the tools.
We got a packet for everybody.
We
with
need
the
tools. Okay, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we need to understand that I'm on Capitol Hill once a week. We're not there. We're not walking the halls with our petitions in hand saying black women demand.
Because we don't know. We don't. There's so many of us. There's a large population. To your point, we've not been educated and informed about that.
But Sojourner took us on the Hill 2 years ago on the health care when that was threatened.
That was good.
And they taught us in a workshop all day. The women who had been on the Hill partnered with the women who've never been on the Hill. And by the end of the day, we were ready to go walk over. We role play. How do you talk to a member of Congress? If you can't get to your member of Congress, is it okay to talk to a legislative assistant? Do you lose if you haven't talked to the member? They are afraid we're going to come, and we're afraid to go.
Well, can I say this about, I have to disagree about a lot of us don't know what to do. A lot of us do know what to do, we just don't do it. A lot of us do understand that it's important for me to talk to my representative. And just to kind of where do we start, I don't think Congress is the place to start. If you're not talking to your school board member in the district that your child actually goes to that school, that's a problem. Right. You know, if you don't know who your mayor is,
it's not either or though. It's not either or.
It's definitely not either or. And I just think, you know, we can, and I love the idea about the house parties because how many of you all have some Tracy Lynn jewelry, some artist body wear? We'll throw together a house party to sell the Tupperware stuff. We will put together a house party with a full buffet to sell jewelry and body shapers. That's right. But we don't have the house parties to talk about the issues that are happening. And I think at the end of the day, when we're talking about voting, if we're not also directly tying that to an issue that's specific for that neighborhood and that community, we are missing the mark.
That's right.
Yep. We have
and
to have,
even more so from neighborhood community, my house.
Absolutely.
My house.
Absolutely.
And where and you know, I've had this conversation with Girlfriends Pray with affordable care. And when you know, somebody sent me a text message and they said, you know, they're going to shut down the government or something about affordable care. And I said, listen, don't get caught up in politics. Ask yourself the question, how does this impact my house? And so even before we get to community, right? If you just challenge us to think about how this impacts and the direct connect from legislature to my house, my children, and all that concerns me, I think that makes a better connection. And then we get a little bit more fired up when it's personal. But because there's a lot of energy here, I want to allow for a small breakout because we're losing some time, but we have about a 20-minute window. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask everybody in this room to participate. If you leave this room now, you are leaving us. You do not leave your, what's the saying? You don't leave your partner in a fire. There's a fire here. Is that an appropriate?
There's a fire.
There's a fire here. And so we don't need anybody to leave the room. We're going to group up into groups of 10. And then we're going to ask the panelists to join you and circle the room. We're going to, there's index cards, right? There's cards that you have to engage in a conversation. We're going to take just about 15, 20 minutes. That's all we have. We plan for longer to really have a conversation about what your thoughts are on what we need to do.
All right. We are back to center. I'm going to ask the panelists to please come back up to the platform, and then I'm going to ask a representative from each group to go to the microphone and share. Are we all ready? Carrie, hello there, gorgeous. All right, Barbara, how was that? Barbara Onwarn? Yeah?
I met some wonderful people.
All right.
Yes, I got some new friends.
Okay, all right, awesome. And we're missing, let's see, we're missing one of our panelists, Stephanie. Where are you? Okay. All right, so let's hear from, now can you, real quick, can you just tell us your name and where you're from?
Absolutely. My name is Stephanie Thomas. I'm from New York. I just moved back there. Hi. I'm from Washington, D.C., which I consider my second home. So I'm excited. I'm also a panelist today in this afternoon session, so please come about the Black Women Lead Pipeline. Thank you very much.
All right.
3 p.m. Amen. So we were blessed to have Dr. Skinner as our group lead, and what our team has become is truly a team. We're going to be a working group. We've decided...
Oh, my. Can we just give a round of applause for that? Wow, what action and accountability. But that's what happens when you get, you know, Dr. Skinner in the circle. You can't leave there just going home to take a nap. Ain't I a woman? You will not be taking a nap. As long as there's breath in your lungs and everything is still working. It may not be working 100%, but you will be doing something. Somebody say, ain't I a woman? All right now. Thank you, Sharon Taylor, for sponsoring this. Are we doing all right? You're too much. Okay.
So just kind of quickly, what we are going to do is we're going to connect all together by email, and then we'll be sponsoring a conference call that will happen, we hope, at least monthly, that will take on a political issue and integrate it with the Voting Rights Act and what type of actions they can take and mobilize around this concern. In our separate centers and circles of influence, we're going to be reaching back to our young women and saying, listen, you're 18 or 17 or 16, I need you to know what's going on, I need you to get registered to vote, tell your family, tell your friends, be an influencer. And we're going to work on education. We're going to sit and think about how do we explain this in a way that gets our young people, our women, and the communities that we often neglect, and our faith communities that sometimes need a little touch of faith themselves, to understand we need you to take a part of this and take leadership in it. So that's our group.
Awesome, awesome. A round of applause.
All right.
And we should make sure that we have the information on the outcome. So I'm going to ask the leader to make sure. I'm sorry, what was your first name, New York City? Stephanie Thomas. I want to just make sure we have your contact information outside so we know that your group is taking action. And I'm believing that the monthly conference call ties in with the intention of Sojourner taking the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project out to the districts.
Yes.
And you'll learn more about that in an initiative that Dr. Skinner and I and Kenya and the Congresswoman have been working on called So True. Somebody say, So True.
So true.
So you have actually already taken the initiative to really begin the work of So True, which is the vision to bring Sojourner Truth, the Legacy Project, out into what I mean from a private sector, we say the field, but to the member districts to take action. So thank you so much, and make sure that we get that outside. We not worthy of a business card. I'm joking. I'm so joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. Okay, yes. Okay, no, just make sure we get outside. Okay, thank you. All right, so the next group.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Mitchell, and I had a wonderful group. We had Miss Barbara Arnwine, and we are coalition builders. Okay. And so the areas that we focused on were youth, of course, coalition building, and how can we all work together as women in our separate areas and districts to bring us all together and tie it back to the issue of voting. So regarding our youth, we actually talked about how civic education has been taken out of our classrooms. Yes. So what can we do as community members to ensure that our youth are still learning why is it important for you to be civically engaged? And how can we reach them where they are? In terms of coalition builders, we had several people from the Housing Authority, from education backgrounds, working with immigration. We had the wisdom of our elders. And it is how do you bring all the different groups together to say this is an issue that we are going to focus on, and here are the resources that each of us has to apply to the issue. And in terms of just next steps, we've talked about, of course, keeping in touch, possibly forming a women's political action committee, remembering that we are not given rights, but we are taking the ones that we already have. Mm-hmm. And so it is how can we work together, again, in our respective districts and say, this is the issue at hand, this is the voice that we are bringing to the issue, and here is how we are not going to stop and how we are going to persevere until the issue has been either eliminated, defeated, enhanced, or whatever we need it to be. So.
Awesome, awesome. And also, if you can just make sure that we get your information as the group lead. So we want to talk to you more about the So True initiative. So thank you very much. The third group, if you could please step to the microphone.
Where's our group? Our person. Alice.
Is that your group, Alice?
No, my group.
Oh, okay. Stephanie, that's your group? All right.
Ain't I a woman?
Ain't I a woman?
Ain't I a woman?
Okay, our group, well, it was my personal commitment statement that I believe that using the social media gives you a broad perspective for a lot of young people. I think it was one of the things that President Obama used in his first election and his second election. And so my commitment statement was to use my access to technology to, get involved with social media and asking these exact questions for a lot of the young folks that I follow and who follow me on Instagram. I personally, the person who I will engage with the following person about this issue is I chose Diddy. Or Puff Daddy, whoever, if you know him that way, because I follow him and he actually also follows me, and I'm also a good friend of his godmother, Susan Taylor's. So I know that I could personally challenge him to put on his Instagram on a daily basis or a weekly basis, because he is a very positive person on his Instagram, to get involved, to Instagram to all of his followers this particular topic on, have you registered to vote, and do you know all the issues that are surrounding the next election. So that's my personal statement, and the steps to follow that is to just harass him and keep sending him Instagram, statements that did you do it today, and see what the results will be from that.
Awesome. Anything else you can share that came out of your group in terms of commitments? What else did the group?
Oh, our group started out with issues with getting involved with young ladies and before they get pregnant, and we got into an issue if they I don't know how to say it.
So here's what I would like to know. It just maybe share one or two action, right? In the commitment statements that came out of the group, the action. Because remember, we talked about the solution. What do we do versus, I think it was Barbara Anwar or maybe Stephanie that said, we like to talk to each other. We pick up the phone, we talk to each other, but we need to be having the right conversations and some action behind the conversation. So can you just share what else came out of the group?
I think one of the important things that came out of our group was building a platform for coalitions across all different groups of communities. We have a Nigerian with us. We have all people. I'm from New York myself. And what we talked about is ownership of our Americanness. I think that a lot of African Americans, they don't own the fact that we built this country. We built that. It was built on our backs. And so a simple thing as when your child is old enough, go and get a passport. I am a therapist and a social worker, and you'd be surprised how many women of color only have their welfare card as ID. They do not have a driver's license. Ergo, they're they're nobody. And so my job, I think, is to get women. I started my organization, Unite Women, and it started because Darrell Issa pissed me off because the only time that 5 different religions got together was on the premise that a woman should not own the rights to her own body. So once we own our own body and our own personhood and our own Americanness and give that to our children, then we move forward. And we do it on a platform of all of our differences, because the fact is, as we stated, there's not going to be another Barack Obama running in 2016. So we need to hold those people that are going to run. We need to get to them now, particularly in the midterms, 2014.
Yeah.
What are you going to do for us?
Yes, but thank you so much. I appreciate you all taking responsibility to bring the conversation within and make it personal. And this is when you can be selfish and make it about you. It's about what are you going to do, right? So, so thank you so much. Should we have the last group was going to share? And I'm curious what came out of your group in terms of commitment, action. Commitment, can I just say this? The only sign or the only measure of commitment is action.
That's right.
Let me say that again. The only measure of commitment is action. So it's one thing to write it on a card, but it's another thing to take action. And I believe that as women of integrity, we would not stand here on the strength of and the shoulders of all of those who came before us so that we could vote and leave this room and not do something. Make a commitment and then not do. And so can everybody say commitment? The only measure of commitment is action.
The only measure of commitment is action.
Ain't I a woman?
Ain't I a woman?
All right, Prudential.
Hi.
Let's hear.
Hi. My name is Lourdes Lopez, and our leader for today was Alice Huffman. And our group decided that our action is that we all have a personal commitment to leave, and by doing two things. One is take the materials that were provided to us and share it with our networks, but most importantly, customize it to the audience. Yes. And when I mean customize it is it our PTA representatives? Is it our children? Is it our personal networks? Is it our colleagues and so on? Because at the end of the day, people need to know what's in it for them, because otherwise the message is not going to resonate with them. Yeah. The other piece that we're going to do is to redouble our efforts to help register individuals, and also talk and tell them how important it is to be a registered voter, but much more importantly, encourage those that are already registered and engage them, especially to go out and vote during the off cycles when it's not a major elections. You know, be part of the community and be present.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. So I'm going to turn back to the panel so that we could bring this session to a close. And so I'm going to yield to the questions that I have to make sure that we leave here with the most important information, action that we need to take from this session. So, so I'm going to start with you, Alice, and then I'm going to come back to you, Dr. Skinner.
Yes, I have presented in each packet NAACP alert that has a description of the discussion today, and it has action that we all need to take, whether we live in a state or not that is red. We need every congressperson to be talked to right now. But when you talk to your congressperson locally, even though, like California, we're not at risk, we want to make sure that those congresspersons from California are going to vote the right way. So our piece is asking you to do local lobbying, to talk to each congressperson, to write letters to them. That's the action that we need to take to affect Congress. On a personal side, from the NAACP side, I think recognizing that we need to activate people for the midterm, that we need to do the same kind of voter registration and the same kind of intense outreach that we did, just as though President Obama is running, because we need to return people to Congress that's going to be supportive. If we don't get it done right away, we'll get it done after the midterm. So we need to be cognizant of the work that we're going to do when we get back in the field. And it still is about politics, politics, politics.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Stephanie?
I'm sure many of you all have heard that faith without works is dead.
Preach now.
Well, I completely believe that voting without action, advocacy, and accountability is dead. And so it's on us to make sure that we also have that accountability within ourselves. And I just have 4 real quick points. One is, we keep talking a lot about young people. In a lot of ways, they're doing okay. That 25 to 45-year-old block, though, is struggling. So I want to encourage, some of us need to focus on that block because they need to get themselves to the polls. Number 2 is, as women, let's help another woman get her superwoman cape on.
That's right.
It's important that we empower each other because, as our group said, when a woman is empowered and knows her strength and she knows it through the knowledge that we help her to gain for herself, she feels as though she can conquer anything. And so help another woman put her cape on. Number 3 is we have to be focused on all black people in this country. And when I say that, that is not just African Americans, because as someone who told me who was from Nigeria, well, I'm African American, and I'm like, well, I'm from Ohio, I'm African. We black, okay? We are black people, which means that we need to come together as a black community, all ethnicities, all backgrounds. The last one I had it right on my hand, is let's start at home. And the young woman shared a great personal story. Let's start at home. Sometimes we are so focused on what's outside of our doors, and the people in our own households aren't registered to vote.
Thank you.
The people in our own community, in our own churches are not turning out to the polls. So let's start at home. Sojourner Truth had a great quote, and she said, it is the mind that makes the body.
Yes.
When you change your thoughts, you change your actions. And I'm so inspired by the conversations that happened today. And I am just, I'm fired up about what we're all going to accomplish. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Barbara?
Yes. I just, a couple of things. Out of our group, at the end of the session, I was talking to one of the amazing women who was in the group, and she told me that one of her resolutions out of all of this is that she's got to start teaching her grandchildren what it means to vote and the importance of the vote. Because the taking out of the schools civic education, our kids don't even know what a Congress is. Nobody teaches them. They don't know anything about their state government. Nobody teaches it anymore. You know, a lot of us went to school when it was taught, but it's not taught any longer. And so we talked about how do we fill that gap, that void in information. So, because that's part of the game, is to keep our folks, keep everybody in this country dumb and disconnected from government. So it's important for us to, you know, make that gap. 2 things we really need from everyone in this room, we really need from you desperately, is one, is to spread the news throughout the country that if you see something wrong with your voting and voting rights, to let us know immediately. So report problems to that hotline, the 1-866 Our Vote hotline. That's 1-866-687-8683.
Can we just pull out our phones and do that now, or are we going to be waiting until midterm
we need to do that.
elections?
Because that's
Can we just put that? Yes.
Yeah, can we just stop?
Can we stop? Is that good?
Yeah.
Because we'll wait until then, because you can share it as you go. If you don't have this number in your phone right now, if you can pull it out, can you please save that?
Yes.
That's the action.
Once again, that's 1-866-687-8683. 1-866-687-8683 is our line that you can call. If a live person doesn't pick up, we will call you back because that's very important. And already through that hotline, we have already gotten on a couple of jurisdictions' cases and told them they got to stop what they were trying to do. One was a call came to Meredith Horton right there, who is one of our attorneys. And the caller called because her son had just gotten a letter telling him he couldn't vote. That he was being challenged, even though he had been voting, he was going to be challenged because they didn't think he had the right to vote. For no reason whatsoever. Just out of the blue, he gets this letter. Turns out they sent thousands of those letters out.
Wow.
She was the only one who picked up the phone and called.
Wow.
And Meredith has been back and forth with that jurisdiction and backing them up and backing them off of that position. That's what we got to fight, you guys. In Florida, they moved in one county, they moved a voting poll. They moved the board of registration, the board of elections, from the center of the city out to a field. You heard me, a field where there's no public transportation, no mall, no housing, a field. That's the kind of stuff we need to hear.
Yeah.
And in Winston-Salem, they tried to come up with some things, and guess what? The students from Winston-Salem State went and sat down and said to that council they weren't leaving until they rescinded their proposal for the voter suppression law, and they won.
And that's what, and those
that's
are
the kind of stuff.
That's the kind of stuff. So we now know the action that we need to take.
And get the website address.
Okay,
Stephanie's
right.
over here.
866ourvote.org?
Yes.
Awesome.
She's organizing me. Last thing is we're coming to every one of your communities to do hearings. We're going to have 25 hearings all around the country. We're going to do 14 state-specific hearings and a number of regional hearings. But we're going to cover every state in the union. So it's very important that you help us to organize people to come to the hearings, help us to identify witnesses who can testify about what's been going on with voting and discrimination and intimidation and deceptive practices or whatever. We need to hear how it's been in your area so that we can build the record that it's important to introduce in the states, fights for electoral reform, and in the Congress, fights for other things. So it's very important that we get this record done so that we can do better. And if you want more information about that, go once again to that website.
Awesome.
And we will be coming to you. I need you. Bad.
We need each other.
Absolutely.
How about that?
We all need you.
We need each other.
This is a coalitional effort.
Thank you so much, Barbara. We just so...
Before you let Barbara
Yes.
speak, I forgot one thing. When I ask everybody to talk to their congresspersons, I also mean Republicans.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I forgot to make a point of that. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, you can't lead people where you have not gone.
Uh-oh.
It's like somebody trying to give you directions to some place they've never been. But anybody gotten bad directions before?
Absolutely.
People,
Oh,
okay.
yes.
So you have to point. You can't point the way. You have to lead the way. You have by going there yourself.
Yes.
Everybody here needs to stop letting people say they're representing you who you've never visited.
Uh-oh.
You've never told them what you wanted them to do.
Accountability.
This last week, I went to visit our senator, U.S. Senator from Massachusetts. There are no black people in the Senate dining room. They thought it was a big deal. Come visit. I looked around. The only people are waiters who look like us. And I asked a staffer, have you seen the NAACP? Have you seen the Urban League? Have you seen the Links, the Deltas, the AK, anybody, everybody? They haven't. We generally are not showing up.
And we must.
So I'm saying, stop letting people say they're representing you. Who's your state representative? Who is your not just your member of Congress? Who's your school board leader?
There you go.
So I think right now in our smartphones, we need to get those names and numbers because they are representing you. They're being paid. They are getting goodies off of your name. So stop telling, we tell people they're not representing you well. So I told the senator a couple things about voting rights because I'd gotten the information from 1-866-OUR-VOTE. I was informed by the Lawyers Committee and the NAACP. We have enough information. Our sister's right. We just need to get turn off scandal and go work. Okay, go to work. That's what we need to do.
Thank you, Dr. Skinner.
In the name of Jesus.
In the name of Jesus, ain't I a woman? A round of applause for all of your participation. I want to leave you with this. Thank you so much, but I want to leave you with this, and we're gonna ask you to just stay seated for just a moment, and before we release the panel. So where we go from here is you've already committed to take action, to do something. We are so grateful to the panelists that stood in in the breakout session because the women members were actually wanted to be here. They wanted to participate and engage with you in these breakout sessions. Of course, they were called to the floor, so we thank you so much for being able to do that. And but I want to share, I want to make clear that you know from this initiative what happens, and that is, or this is the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. It happens at this event every year, and then there's a Women's History Month event. But in the member districts, there'll be an initiative that's called So True that I mentioned, and what we're going to ask of you in the room, if there's leaders in the room who want to volunteer to really lead initiatives there in terms of being champions, ambassadors to share the information that comes out of this initiative, out of the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project, we really need you. And so real quick, let me tell you what it is. So True, it's a local network established in member districts to engage and empower and educate women. That makes sense, right? And so it's identifying and addressing issues like this issue and relevant to the district. This is an issue relevant to everyone. And then supporting the member platforms and being a champion for the Sojourner Truth Initiative and what comes out of this. So if you are interested in being an ambassador, sharing the information, using your social media platform and maybe your network and maybe your reach, we just need to know who you are. So make sure that we connect before you leave this room. And then what I want to share is that the last event that comes out of the women members of Congress and the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation is a panel this afternoon that Stephanie is going to be on. Yes. It's called Black Women Lead. Say Black Women Lead.
Black Women Lead.
Building a Sustainable Leadership Pipeline. And I'm going to tell you the room. It's from 3 to 5, and we would love to see you there. It's room 209C. If you meet me there, actually, I have a free gift for you all. Yes. Look, the people are going to rush over there. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. And Crystal, raise your hand. She's going to give you some information and as you go out. And that'll be for all of the women that'll meet us over. And Stephanie, you see that support, that love, Stephanie, for the Black Women Lead?
All right.
Awesome. So we will be there for Black Women Lead. And as we wrap, I want to leave you with the words of Sojourner Truth. And I'm sorry, the men are not feeling the love. Well, I mean, listen. Just let us drive. We got this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm so kidding. I'm so kidding. Okay. Well, we have a free gift for you that we're gonna do something.
Get something.
You know, when Black women get together, you know, you all could just stand back. We will handle it. Don't get us fired up. Ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? That man over there say a woman needs to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helped me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me a best place. Ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I've plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. Ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get to it and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? That little man in black there say a woman can't have as much rights as a man because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman of God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, together women ought to be able to turn it right side up. Ain't I a woman? Thank you, everybody.
All right. Good job, G.
Alice, I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much for coming.
I am so
great job.